Hi there, and welcome to Lion Illustration. First of all, I want to thank all the subscribers. It's been a long year of hard work and I couldn't find time to make more videos. If I recall correctly, my first and only video on this channel was made like around a year ago. On the other hand, the response of you guys has been overwhelming. Thank you for joining this experiment, and I promise I'll try my best to make more and better videos. Now let's get to the point. I've noticed that many of you are interested in art, but also in creating your own comics. Today I want to talk about something that I find very important when you're trying to make a good quality story, and how to make it both understandable and believable. The world that surrounds the main characters in our stories helps the reader believe what we want to tell them. It helps delivering the message and can make the whole project more attractive. On the other hand, a world that is not well developed can tear the project apart and take the reader out of the experience. How many times have you watched a TV series or read a comic and you were looking at the society that was taking place there and you were like, how could these people survive here? Like, I don't believe this, you know? Following some simple steps, we can try to solve these kinds of problems and make the world and their people work in our favor. In order to do that, I want to show you step by step the path that we went through when developing the Green People, the society that populates the land of below, in the webtoon comic series The House of Stars, where I've been working for the past 2 years. The House of Stars is a webtoon comic series that takes place in between two worlds: the modern real world of Virgil, that is in the surface of the earth, and the magical land of below, which is covered by an eternal night. The House of Stars is an adaptation of the classical Scottish tale of Tamlin. Although its characters and emplacements might seem familiar, The House of Stars is a whole new tale, and so everything has to be redesigned for its own purpose. As in the real Tamlin story, in The House of Stars, we have a heroine that travels to a magical realm of fairies, where an evil queen rules over all the creatures. When we first approached the design of this magical land, our heads immediately went to the fantasy comfort zone. The first advice I would give when you're trying to create your own fantasy society, it would be to try to make something that we've never seen before. The fairy kingdom crowded with pixies has been done quite a lot of times already. And so, even though it's something that I really enjoy drawing, I thought it would be better to create my own fairy variant. Something different to whatever pops in mind when you first think about fairies. With this, I don't mean you to take the easy path of making the straight opposite. If fairies are good and wear pastel colors, I'm gonna make them sassy and goth. That's too lazy. Neither I mean to push the limits in the extreme bizarre. Bringing something new to the table is not that much about shocking the audience. And you have to know that random doesn't always work. What I really mean is that you must have to try to find something that makes your idea unique and special. That will make your world stand out and be memorable. So even though I started with some pixel-like fairies, I added a twist to them, but it didn't take long since I scrubbed them away. This doesn't mean that I disliked the first designs. I actually found them pretty cute and interesting. I started with the typical silhouette of a pixie, with tiny bodies and classic insect wings, and then covered the faces so you could only see their tiny eyes. They were different and I liked them, but here comes the second advice, and it's something many artists are known to despise. Remember, never fall in love with your work. To scrap the first idea is never a bad thing. You can always get back to it if you really feel that was the one. But for now, let's try something new. To get an idea that really splits from what our mind drives us automatically, try to go back to the roots, to the essence, to what it really means to me, the idea of what I'm trying to create. In this specific case, the fairies, the first thing that pops to my mind, the idea that always goes around those creatures, it's nature. Fantasy stories and mythology always place the fairies in placements such as woods or flower fields. Wherever they are, these creatures are always meant to be outside. They're wild creatures and they usually have a very strong bond with nature. And we can forget that in their early representations, they usually have natural aspects, such as insect wings or animal faces, or even plant elements. Then an idea came to mind. What if the plant itself was the fairy, with no shape-shifting involved or transformation? Rocks and mushrooms that can just get up and run away, you know? Plain natural elements that can move and walk or even sing and talk. I like that idea very much because it also added the mysterious component of that anything in the wild could be alive, but in a way that we don't expect. For instance, some mountains in the fairy world would be able to move, but because they are not just regular mountains, but very big fairy creatures. And this could extend to any natural being, like flowers, plants, or even the grass. I really like this idea, but the concept at some point was too wild, because the writer had something else in mind for the fairies. These fairies from the story were meant to be social and educated. They were not just the green people, as we call them first, they were also story keepers, which is a very important role that they would play in the story. Those who love creating worlds and spend a lot of time in tiny details, the next advice is especially meant for you. Something that we must always keep in mind when creating a fictional civilization is that it works for its purpose. While we design our world, we have to make sure that it's what our main plot and characters need. Otherwise, even though we find it interesting or creative, it would only work as a distraction of what really needs to be told. So make sure that whatever you're doing during the whole process, it's working for the story and not against it. And so, once I understood the real meaning of the green people, the design that we all know started to take form. The green people, or greenies as they were renamed afterwards, would be natural elements such as trees, roots, fruits and vegetables that had evolved in some way to more human-like forms. They would walk and talk as any other human, and they would have clothing, houses and even a job. This plant folk needed to seem more like a skilled and self-aware society, since they will play such an important role in this magical world. The general idea was established, but is this next step what really separates believable society of the rest? So here's the key element to make your society believable. What do they do what they do? What do these people eat? How do they get what they need? Where do they live? What do they think about themselves? At this point, any question is a good question, and you need to know how to answer all of them. If there's a hierarchy in between them, how do they usually feel? If there's something that worries them, or if there's something that they all believe in. You need to have every and each of their thoughts under control. You can't let the details mess with your story. It's totally the opposite. You have to make them your allies. Every civilization, what they think, what they wear, where they live, what they eat, what they own, it's made in a specific way for a reason. And that's what you have to learn about yours. The needs of the characters will reveal the details of what you should take care of. For instance, when I started designing the greenified models, I noticed that, as fairies themselves, they would live in places such as fields or woods, in houses that would be inside natural elements such as trees or the ground. And they would need to manage to get their food from the surroundings. And that may take a lot of time outside, during an eternal night. So that's when I realized that their main concern should be avoiding freeze to death while they walk across the lands. And that's why the green people design was fully based on capes, hooded figures that walk across fully covered, which also made them more mysterious. We don't have to forget that they represent a magic society. Also, as a unique culture in this world, they would need to have their own style. So when you see one of their capes, the reader would instantly recognize it as one of the greenies. The greenies style is very simple, mostly composed by earth tones and easy shapes. I thought that this would make it much believable, since they don't own many things but the ones that they can find around in nature. That's why I came up with the earth palette in contraposition to the cleaner and richer colors that the greeners from the castle wear, because those have richer materials. But on the other hand, you can still recognize the green people's style in their shapes and cuts, just with improved supplies. On the other hand, we had a greenie that had to stand out from the rest. And that's the only reason our peach has its own color palette. You can also tell by the patterns that Lily, our main character, is wearing greenish clothing when she's offered a more adequate suit for walking across the fantasy land, in contraposition to the red cape that she wears afterwards. Not only the colors are different, also the shape and cut of the cape. So when you see the red one for the first time, you can tell it's something different that doesn't belong to the green people style. There was also a happy coincidence when I designed these creatures, and is that I draw most of them extremely short, which is not a good thing if you need to work in between high grass and fields. There was no way they would be able to see one another. And here's where the pointy hat made complete sense. It was meant to be a nod to the typical fairy pointy hat, but it turned out to be also useful as an element that had a purpose. This kind of happy coincidence take place more often than you expect when you're trying to design your own world. Make up things for your society only because you like them. For sure, you'll come up for the answer to that later. And so, the greenies were born and ready to place in the world. I know some of you might think that developing with such care a society that is not going to be so important during the developing of the stories shouldn't take a lot of thought, but I assure you that it's something that the reader will definitely notice. Even though if it's a civilization that won't have many scenes, if it's fully rounded and has distinctive details, it can add credibility to the world and make the whole plot work way better. I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you so much for the comments that you left in the previous one. You guys have been amazingly welcoming to my channel. For now I'm working on a couple videos and projects that might remain a mystery for a while, but not a lot, I promise. Until then, you can go read The House of Stars on webtoon and let me know in the comments if there's something you would like me to talk about next time. And I guess that's it. Okay, enjoy. Bye. And I guess that's it. Okay, enjoy, bye.